Flight school. Let's talk about that. Low effort intro. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, the place where I talk about things that I like and hope you find interesting. Today I'll be talking about my flight school experience and answering some questions I have gotten about it. Things like, would I recommend going to flight school? What kind of things do you need health-wise so you can apply? How much does it cost? How long will it take to finish? What does the courses contain? And what happens after the training? I'm also going to show you a couple of tips I would like have known before I started flight school. Let's get to it. Should I go to flight school? It depends. If you're health-wise fine, we're gonna go to that a bit later here. And flying is something that you absolutely want to do, and you can arrange the money for it. I would highly recommend to book a lesson from the local flight school just to go see what's what. You don't have to sign up for the whole program. You can buy single separate flight lessons, so you can have your introduction now and have that taken off your course if you decide to go for one. So definitely, if you're interested, go test it out. In my school, I think it was like a couple of €100, like maybe €250 for plane rental, including the teacher and the fuel. So it's actually quite affordable.
Hello, old friend, we meet again. I missed you since winter. Let's go.
What do you need to start flight school? Money. In order to get the private pilot's license, you will need a medical certificate, which looks like this in Finland. It's a piece of paper from an aviation doctor that says that you're fit to fly. I would recommend getting the Class 2 certificate, which has a bit more tests and whatnot. It's like a few €100 more expensive. If you take Class 1 medical, it will be easier to get, but then you can only fly like very small airplanes and you need to update it if you want. Things like color deficiency, I do not think were an issue to get at least a Class 1 medical certificate. It's up to the aviation medical examiner to figure out if the deficiency is enough not to be able to fly. For example, if your vision is not perfect, they might add you can't fly during the night kind of exceptions to your license, but you can still fly. In the medical check, they are mostly interested if you can pilot the airplane safely and is there any medical conditions that could make you go during the flight. So are you putting other people at risk? They are gonna check things like your vision, your hearing, reflexes, some kidney related blood work. Then there's questionnaire about substance abuse and how much alcohol you use and things like that. Psychiatric things can also disqualify people from getting a private pilot's medical. Things like anxiety disorders generally are a reason to disqualify somebody from getting a medical. So if you feel like you're iffy, maybe, you don't know, I would highly recommend to go get the medical license first. And if you get that, then apply to flight school, because it will suck if you have just gone through the flight school and then you get the information from the authorities that, yeah, you'll never get the license. So if you have history of, for example, anxiety, I would recommend to talk with the doctor. Specific kind of doctor, not your general practitioner. It's what you need to see is aeromedical examiner. They know the aviation laws and requirements. I had to go to psychiatrist to pretty much prove I'm sane, and my mistake was to go to a general psychiatrist when I needed a specialist that was aviation psychiatrist, I think. Anyway, they were authorized by the government. So save your money and time there and go straight to the specialist. Age-wise, my school accepts 15-year-old students with the permission from their parents. You need to be at least 17 in Finland to apply for the actual private pilot license from the government, but you can start the training earlier. How long will it take to finish? The training program, it comes in two parts. There's the theory part and there's the actual flying part. The theory is 100 hours of 9 different topics, and our school at least offers an e-learning platform, so I did 88 hours of that at home. So that leaves 12 hours of studying at the school, which has the written exams and radio communication training and that kind of stuff that is more difficult to do over the air. The theoretical knowledge part of the course contains things like air law and ATC procedures, meaning air traffic control procedures. You need to know things like how much alcohol you can have before your flight. The answer is 0. And how to communicate with the traffic control tower and the radar. The second section of the course is human performance, which contains things like how humans work in high altitude. Basically, it's like why you suck. Machines are much better. Things like if there's a sudden drop of pressure, what to expect, and all kinds of quirks of human body and how they manifest themselves during flights. For example, what kind of optical illusions you have to take into account while flying and landing an aircraft. Your senses will lie to you and you cannot trust them, but if you know what to expect, you can take it into account. The human performance part was 5 hours of the total. The air law and ATC was 15 hours. Then there's the weather, meteorology, 15 hours. You have to understand basic concepts like air humidity, temperature, air pressure, how they affect each other and the airplane. Everything about wind currents, cloud formation, fog, what kind of weather to expect in certain conditions and stuff like that. Then there is 4 hours of communications, which is radio communications mostly. It's all about how to talk with the ATC and other aircraft that are using the same airspace, how to use your actual radio equipment, and what do the different adjustments mean. The theory part has 9 hours of principles of flight, basically basic physics, how the plane actually works, how the lift is generated, what forces act against the plane, things like Bernoulli's principle, so you can debug your carburetor when it freezes over during flight. The 6th part is operational procedures, was about 7 hours, basic operations of the aircraft. How does an airfield work? Where can you park? How can you use the taxiways? Which direction of runway to use? That kind of stuff. Then there's 6 hours of flight performance and planning, which is, like it says, planning. You need to know how things like lowered air pressure affects your need of runway. If it's cold, will you need less or more runway than usual? How about if you're landing on grass? That kind of things. Then there's 15 hours of aircraft general knowledge. This is the part of the course where you go through the nuts and bolts of the actual aircraft. It's a part of your type rating. So you know what all the switches and buttons and spark plugs in the aircraft do and how they work. It is very important to know and understand how, for example, the dual ignition system works. So if there's issues during the flight, you can easier find out what's wrong with it and maybe even fix it during the flight or circumvent the problem without having to land. It's important to have a general understanding on how the machine that you're using works. So in an emergency situation, you know what's going on and where's the fault. The last part of the theoretical knowledge was 12 hours of navigation. This was actually the hardest part for me, as you have to use things like actual aviation map, paper, plotter to measure distances and draw lines on the said map, and a flight computer, which I know sounds fancy, and I can tell you when they told me that they will be shipping me one was quite of a letdown when they sent me this piece of cardboard. It's a mechanical calculator you can use to do unit conversions and calculate basic things like how long will this fuel last me, and calculate things like wind correction angle, and it's weird but very handy if you learn how to use one. It will look like black magic to all your friends. Basically the course is about using these 3 things to make a plan how to fly and where. Then you can do fuel calculations and weight and balance calculations and stuff like that. My favorite part, of course, was to use the iPad I was like way too lazy to use the paper map to draw all the things, so I use 4Flight to plan my routes and then copy the plan from there to paper. But anyway, you have to know how to do flight planning on paper so you can get your license. And in an emergency situation, if you don't have the iPad, which tends to overheat and die on you when you least expect it, you still need your map during the flight. But yeah, that pretty much takes care of the theoretical knowledge part of the training. Then there's like language proficiency check. English is the international aviation language, so if you can speak English fine, you should be fine. Of course, the local language is usually spoken in the radio, so you will survive with English, but local language is of course much better. Let's take a look about the practical side of the flight school, the 45 hours of flying. The curriculum contains the introduction flight, then there are the basics like how to drive the thing, taxi procedures, a whole lot of emergency procedures. Those are practiced quite a lot, so they come from your spine when you need one. What kind of things you need to take into account during the liftoff, how to change altitude efficiently, how to turn efficiently, how to fly slowly, which is a skill, how to stall and recover from stall condition. Here you can see me doing the recovery, and as you can see there's quite a lot of altitude being lost. How to get out of tailspin, how to function around the airfield. Then there's the solo check, which is when the teacher determines that you're qualified enough to fly alone. You do that, and after that you can fly the airplane on your own. Basically the teacher is on the ground with a walkie-talkie and you're gonna be flying near the airfield. Then there's some more flying with the teacher, and after that there's like a long distance flight alone. They call it the triangle. You have to go to, I think it was 2 different airports. You have to land 2, and the flight itself took like 3 hours or something. Then there's a bunch of flying alone, how to recover if you get lost, how to use radio navigation, and how to fly just using the instruments. And the last thing there is the test. Check ride, check flight. You do that with another flight instructor that has been authorized by the government to give you the piece of paper if they determine you're safe enough. The whole process is actually quite comparable to getting a driver's license. It's not that far off it, except there's more hours and it costs a lot more. Speaking of which, how much does the flight school cost? It depends. If you aim to be a commercial pilot flying the Airbus and whatnot, we're talking maybe 200,000 euro ballpark, at least here in Finland. But what I'm going through is private pilot license, meaning I can fly these kind of things. This is a model of the plane I'm practicing with. It's a single piston engine Cessna C150. If you want to fly these kind of things, and you don't want to receive money out of it, then that's the private pilot license, and you can use that for hobbies and flying friends around and whatnot, but you cannot receive money for it. You can split the plane costs with the passengers, but no salary for you. For that you need commercial pilot license. Anyway, the hobby license. The official name of it is private pilot license aircraft. Flight school has sucked 10,780 euros and 9 cents out of my pocket for the whole course. On top of that, there will be maybe a few thousand euros of administrative costs and miscellaneous health-related costs in order to get the different licenses. And it's also good to book a bit of extra money so you can get tools. You probably want to buy an iPad with it so you can use GPS and digital maps on your cockpit. After every flight you have to log your flight. Basically you write down where you took off, where you landed, when and with what. And for that you have a logbook. When you're starting your flight school, I would recommend to invest some money and get the Jeppesen pilot logbook for your country. It is really good quality book, and the flight log is like your CV. It's something you need to archive for the rest of your life. So it's okay to spend 50 euros on it. I would also recommend investing some money and getting the plastic one of the flight computers, as the paper one is a bit fiddly in the cockpit. And you probably need to invest in proper eyewear for flying. Sunglasses are a must. It's actually quite bright in there, much more bright than on the ground. if you normally wear eyeglasses, get sunglasses with prescription lenses. I think there was some sort of restriction about flying with contact lenses. So at least in my medical certificate there is a restriction that I have to have 2 pairs of glasses with me when I fly, even though my strength in the glasses is next to 0. If you're planning to go to the laser surgery to correct your vision, that doesn't disqualify against flying, said my doctor. But there is a risk that if they botch the eye surgery somehow, you'll probably never fly again. So I have opted to use eyeglasses because then it's one risk removed, even though people say I look way better without the glasses. I disagree, but there's a huge bags. I'm still going through my flight school, but my estimate to finish it is about 15,000 euros in total. To finance it, it's my hobby. I'm not in a hurry to do that. I spread the flight school over 2 years, so I mostly fly during the weekend. And because I advance the training so slowly, I can get enough out of my salary to pay for the flight school as I go. But 15,000 euros out of pocket is a bit heavy. That will get you the private pilot license, and you can fly during daytime without paying customers with a single engine piston driven aircraft. If you want to tag extra courses to that, so you can, for example, fly during night time, that will cost you extra. So 15,000 euros won't get you a job. What then after you have gotten your license? My plan is pretty much to have fun with it. Get some friends, rent an airplane and just go look around. It's not that expensive to book a single engine aircraft. My flight school rents those out for, I think was about 150 euros an hour for C-150 Cessna and like 200 euros for the Piper Cherokee, which is a 4-seater. If you split the costs for like 4 people, that's like 50 euros an hour. That's totally not bad for a great afternoon with friends. Anyway, I was planning also to continue my training with the seaplane qualification, so I can land on water, which there's plenty of lakes in Finland. Then I would like to get the night flying certification, so I don't have to be on the dot in the airport and I can go flying during the night, as it's quite different to be looking, for example, city during the night than during the day. And there's the instrument rating, which allows you to use fly during bad weather. If you can't see the runway, you can still land with the capable aircraft. That is required if you want to become a commercial pilot and go fly the bigger ones. For those, you're gonna need the multi-cockpit crew license, so you can operate aircraft with multiple engines and a cockpit that needs 2 or more pilots. That's a separate type. And then you need the type rating for the whatever Airbus or Boeing you want to go fly. So there is a lot of extra training you can add to your, let's say, base level private pilot's license. But those are the 3 I'm planning to get within the next decade. I'm also planning to get my own airplane at some point, but for that I need some more YouTube revenue, so go ahead and click the subscribe button. But so far I have to be flying rentals. Anyway, I hope you found my flight school story interesting, and have you been thinking about joining flight school? If yes, drop a comment below and subscribe. There's gonna be more aviation content after the weather gets a bit more better than Finland. Probably not gonna happen. If you liked the video, you know what to do. If you didn't, well, there's the other button. Anyway, thanks for watching and see you on the next video.